at Black Wall Street Media, we really like to get to know the person behind the commander. And really, I would like to just, my first question would be, who is Alison? Who is Alison, and why did you decide to become a police officer?
Right, those are quite big questions really to start off with. So, I think the two are linked, those two questions are linked. I joined the police to make a difference, and actually I only joined the police because I had initially had a joke with my husband because I saw a tiny advert in the paper, and at the time I was living in Hampshire, and this was a local paper, the smallest writing you've ever seen, the smallest advert you've ever seen, and I was looking to change careers, and as a joke I said to my husband, do you know what, James, they're looking for police officers. And he said, I think you'd be really good. And I looked at him and I said, are you joking? And he said, I think you'd really be very, very good for these particular reasons. And as we went down a bit of a tick list, it was things like, I get bored easily, so I would like to go into a job where I don't quite know what's going to happen every day, and you've got these surprises. Somewhere where I could thrive because of being able to develop and have a career, long-term career. Serving communities has always been top of my list, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, and that is due to my the way in which I've been brought up. And there was this long list, and eventually I got to the end of this long list and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to go out and see what the policing is all about. And I went on a ride along, and I came back from the ride along, and I can remember as if it's yesterday, and I said to my husband, do you know what, that was so interesting, I want to go out again. So I did.
To get another ride along.
We went on another ride along. So a few weeks later I contacted my local station again, and I went on a ride along, and I came back and I said, I think I'm going to apply to become a police officer. And we talked about it, and there were all sorts of things around the impact on the children in terms of working shifts and things like that. And we went through the pros and cons, and I decided to apply, and I got in straight away actually, which was really good. But I think what actually sparked that was my background and the way in which my parents brought me up and the values that they had. And the reason why I say that, my parents were both from Guyana. I'm a Windrush baby, born in London. They came over in the 60s. They actually met in London, although from the same country, they met in London. They got married, and a few years later I was the first of 4, so I've got 3 siblings. And they were the most incredible parents you could ever have. They were so linked to communities. They had a really caring way about them. We lived in southwest London, and the McRae house was the house where you could go and you could be safe. So we had people literally from all over the world who would arrive at this house in southwest London. Mum and Dad were always cooking, there were always people coming to the house.
Pepper pot.
Yeah.
I know a lot about Guyana, don't you worry. Pepper pot.
And it was just an amazing atmosphere. They travelled extensively all over the world. So they ended up having these guests from all over the world. One of my enduring memories of my childhood is Heathrow Airport. Either dropping someone off or picking someone up. And I think that actually the way in which I was brought up with all these different people from around the world coming and going, diversity was just something that was just natural and just happened. Looking after communities was something that was just natural and just happened. And they had very, very distinct idea of their values, what was right and wrong, about the importance of looking after communities, of looking after people, stepping in when things weren't quite right. And I on reflection, think that that was actually a massive influencer for me eventually joining the police service, because the way in which I approach policing is that it is all about communities. It's about doing the right thing. It's about making sure that we perform as well as we possibly can do, that we detect crime, we're there to protect people, and that all communities have the right to be protected. And those are among the strongest reasons I have for joining the police. So I do believe that the two are connected.
They're very connected.
Yeah.
And a few years later now, moving on, do you think it's lived up to your expectations?
I think it has, and then some, to be honest, yes. So when I look back at my career, so I've had 22 years in policing. At the time that I joined up, the Home Office had a programme for developing leaders identified as talent, and I was able to get onto that programme. It was called the Accelerated Promotion Scheme for Graduates, so I actually joined the police with a degree in social policy. And I got onto that programme, and that really enabled me to just keep going and to develop my leadership skills. I had a whole range of opportunities in front of me to work really, really hard and get the benefit of that. So there wasn't anything that was just put on your lap. It was that if you worked really hard and you could demonstrate that you were working at a rank above you, then you would be signed up to be promoted. You had to do exams and things like that. But even so, that was a really good opportunity for me, and I was able, through that programme, to develop myself both inside the police service and outside. So looking at going into the inspection body, there's a body that inspects police forces across the country. I was able to go on secondment there, did that for 9 months. I was able to work within different disciplines within policing, so working within CID, the Criminal Investigation Department, looking at serious crime, managing some very serious and some high-profile cases around child abuse investigation. Safeguarding is a really big thing for me, so I was able to work in the safeguarding arena, represent my force around hate crime, and looking at working with communities around female genital mutilation. And then going back into uniform as a geographic commander in different cities, including Portsmouth and Southampton, when I was in Hampshire. And I have eventually ended up here in the Met. That wasn't something that was on my radar. But that's part of the beauty of policing, actually, is that sometimes opportunities come up that you don't necessarily think are going to be opportunities when you first join the police. And I was also able to do some work abroad, so working in New York for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Teaching international criminal justice at John Jay. So when I look back at my career and I reflect on some of the amazing managers that I've worked for, I've been mentored by some of the most incredible leaders in policing. It has been quite a journey, actually, which is not over yet.
Well, I hope not. So if I was, what would you say to somebody who is thinking of joining the police force? What 3 key things would you tell them of why they should join and why is it a good career choice? So the first thing for me, which has always been very close to my heart, is that it gives you an opportunity to do something amazing in your life. For me, that has been around making a difference to communities and making a difference to my staff. The second thing for me is don't just think about policing in terms of the police, because within policing there's a whole incredible range of careers that you can have, from being media officers to you could be a CSI, you could be a PCSO, community support officer, you could be a police officer, but actually even within policing as a police officer there are just so many different things you can do. If
If you're mad about cars, you can go into road policing. If you want to focus more on neighbourhoods, you can be a neighbourhood police officer. Certainly in the Met, there are hundreds of different roles. You know, we've got some officers who deal specifically with antique fraud. So it's actually down to that specialism.
Wow.
So there are some amazing, you know, you can work abroad, work abroad. So that's the first thing I would say about the community bit, making a difference. The second is most definitely don't restrict your thinking just to being a police officer. And the third thing is to come on a ride-along. I did.
Ride-along.
And coming on a ride-along gives you a little bit of a snippet of an insight into what policing is all about, the challenges they face. You can actually have a chat with the officers as you're out with them and ask them about the realities of being a police officer. And they can also tell you about some other broader stuff. So they might work with people who are, I don't know, in the dogs unit, for example, and they can talk about that, they can talk about their experience. So I think after going on a ride-along, even if you decide that policing is not for you, you will have just had an insight into what a police officer does, how they think, what they do. And then that's just an opportunity for you to make an informed decision, rather than just assume that you know.
And a ride-along, what does that take? Like, you know, I want to do this ride-along ride now. I need to go on a ride-along. So what kind of happens, you know?
So on a ride-along, you literally sit in the back of a van or a police car, usually with two police officers, and you spend 2 or 3 hours with them, and they will go to jobs. If it's too dangerous for you to kind of come out of the car and observe what they're doing, they'll ask you to, they'll make a risk assessment.
Yeah, a judgment.
Or if you don't feel safe, you just stay in the car. The vast majority of calls, actually, you probably would be able to get out and see what they do. And it's simple. It's literally a way of finding out a little bit more about policing in a really simple way, and it's 2 or 3 hours out of the day. So you'd be welcome to come on a ride-along if you want to.
And it's interesting because I suppose a ride-along, let's say somebody like myself, if I said, let me try to get into the police force, media would be my area of interest, you know. So how would I get a better insight into that kind of career? You know, the things that people don't often talk about in policing. How would I get a better idea if I wanted to be in, I don't know, media or head of media or something for the police?
Yeah, so through the ride-along, you can raise those issues. You know, once you've done your ride-along, you say to the officer, do you know what, I think I'd like to know a little bit more about media. They will be able to put you in touch with someone who can speak to you about that. But we have all sorts of opportunities and programs. We've got internships that we're now developing where young people can come along and spend some time in different areas, and media is one of them. So we're thinking quite creatively around how we can get especially diverse and underrepresented communities to join policing, because as you know, that's an issue for policing. And we want to be successful. So we want to be successful in the way in which we reach out to those communities, and that's one opportunity. So I get involved in some of that work that's led by learning and development, talking to different people, young people, about what we do and why we do it. And it really, I think it builds confidence and it builds trust with those communities, because there are, I think, a lot of myths that need busting. And the best way to do that is actually to come in and talk to us about what we do.
So do you feel that there's pressure on you as a black woman to lead by example or bring your community along, you know? How has that journey for you as a black woman been? Because obviously you've gone through the ranks, but has it been a smooth journey based on your gender and your race?
So if you're asking the question, is there pressure on me? Yes, there is. Has it been a smooth journey? No. But I think that's life. I don't think life is a smooth journey, and I think you get barriers and challenges wherever you go in life. The main thing for me is that although I do feel that pressure, actually the privilege side of it is much bigger than the pressure. Can while I'm here, and it's a great opportunity for me to show people what's possible. And we don't have enough black female officers within policing, and that's not just the Met. Again, I think there are some myths around policing, especially for black people. I think when you have a look at all the social stuff that goes on anyway, I think black females have perhaps more pressure put on them, socially. So I think it's probably a combination of things to do with policing, but also what happens outside policing. So I would say to black females, come on a ride along and see what we do. I think for women, taking the race out of it, I think the life of women within policing has changed completely since I joined up, in terms of the acceptance and the encouragement actually of flexible working arrangements for women, part-time working, compressed hours, massive changes, which makes it an easier choice, I think, to join. So although, we do have shift work and stuff like that, there are ways of negotiating around that. So I would seriously say, come on a ride along and just see what we do. See what amazing things you can achieve. And it makes you feel really fulfilled. It is really, really hard work, but it does make you feel fulfilled when you feel as if you are achieving something that's going to leave your little footprint on the world after you've gone.
And that leads me nicely on to my next question is, I always like to know if you could, based on your career at the police, and I'm sure you'll be on here for a lot longer, many years, it's all about legacy, isn't it? And if you could write your own eulogy in the sense of your legacy, what would that be? What do you think you'd like it to say?
I think it would be quite short. And I think I would like it to say that I made a difference, and it was positive.
That's nice and short, but it's to the point, isn't it? It's to the point. It's to the point. It's to the point. So what's next for you? I mean, where else is there? I know there's different rankings in the police. Where would be your next career lift? Where would that? What would be the next from commander? Where else could you go?
So I'm a commander at the moment. The Met calls my rank commander. Most other forces will call it assistant chief constable.
Okay.
So as a commander, I can apply for a deputy chief constable role or a chief constable outside of the Met. And if it's within the Met, they call their deputy chief constables and constables a different thing, but it's the same rank. So I could also apply for those. So I do intend to seek promotion when it's right. I think there's so much more that I can achieve laterally as well. So it's not all about promotion for me, and it never has been. I've been able to achieve, as you know, a lot around academics. So I joined with a first degree, did my master's degree on the programme that I mentioned before, and now have a doctorate. So in terms of my academics, I would really like to publish some papers. I'm not sure where I'll find the time to do that.
But it's in your wish list.
Yes, it is. And outside of the job, there are things that are actually quite important to me as well. I think it's really important that you get your rest and recovery outside of your work. So I sometimes work quite long hours, actually. I try to get as much welfare, work-life balance as I probably can, as I can. And when I'm not at work, I like to spend some time with my husband, who's absolutely amazing. And my
we
children.
We like husbands, don't we?
We do like husbands. And I love horse riding. So I really want to continue to develop my skills around horse riding. Husband and I do a lot of skiing. So there are things not just based in policing, but I really enjoy my life outside of policing as well, and I think that's important for you to have some balance.
And what's one of your wish lists of places next to visit on your adventures with your husband?
Oh, well, we're soon going to Jordan, which I haven't been to before. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see what that's all about, and bring some memories back from Jordan.
And have you been back to Guyana?
I went when I was very small, so I would like to go back to Guyana with my husband.
A lot going on there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think when the time is right, we want to go, and my husband really wants to go to Guyana, so that's on my list. Yeah.
Okay. So so you've told us a little bit about Alison outside work and inside work. Is there anything else that you want to achieve that's on your bucket list, that you, whether it's a mixture of work and pleasure, what's next on your bucket list, or things that you want to get through?
Well, my bucket list is actually very short.
Not short. Very short.
And that's because certainly within policing, I feel as if I've achieved quite a lot. I think my bucket list for policing would be that I would like to be promoted at some point, most definitely. Also on my list for policing is that I would really, really like to see an increase in trust and confidence in black communities in the police. If I can contribute to that and continue to do some of the work that I'm doing around community policing, that would be amazing if I could achieve that. And I would retire very happy if I could see an improvement there. Outside of policing, there are some countries that I think I'd really like to go to. I haven't been to China, so my parents travelled an awful lot. They took the four of us round to all over the place, and we travelled a lot, and I travelled a lot when I was small. But China's one of those places that I've never been to. So that would definitely be on my list. China and Jordan have been on my list, and Cuba. I'd like to go to Cuba.
You must go.
Yeah.
And soon, because it's a little bit changing.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful. I think you would absolutely love it. It's just got so much.
Yeah.
But you have to go to understand what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah.
And in recruitment, in regards to trying to recruit more diverse and particularly women, and then particularly women of colour, what do you think we need to do? I know it's about changing perceptions, which is always difficult, but what do you think we need to do? Because the black community in particular do have their own ideas.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like me meeting you, completely different. I'll walk away saying, "Oh, that lady Alison was lovely." What were we all talking about? So it's about, I suppose, people getting to know the people behind policing more than anything else, putting that human face to policing, which maybe we haven't had so much of before.
Yeah. No, that's really important, which is a really nice segue actually into some work that I have been doing, and I've been working very closely with other officers across the whole of the Met on Behind the Badge, which is it's just literally what you said really, what is behind that uniform. And Behind the Badge is an idea that I came up with, which is to have two people from policing from different career points and choices to talk about themselves, why they joined up, what the challenges are, what are the good bits, what are the not so good bits, and to do that on diverse social media, which we hadn't previously used in the Met. and it has actually gone down a storm, and it's just a way of, I call it humanising officers. So it's not just about the uniform, it is that we also have our hopes, our dreams, the things that we want to achieve, and our reasons for joining the police. And it's not always great, but most of the time it is, and to be really honest about that. And we have so far had probably about 120 interviews under our belt now across the Met, and continue to do that every single month right across the Met using different officers. And we've worked really closely with a lot of officers of colour, and they've come forward in different areas of the Met, and they have talked honestly about their experiences as officers within policing. And it has built trust and confidence and an understanding in communities around what policing is all about, and why we join. I think we need to do more of that. I think what we also need to do is, I believe that everything starts with trust. If you want people to join an organisation, I think that they probably have to trust that organisation, and that they have to believe that once they join that organisation, they'll be looked after. So the first bit for me is around engaging with communities. If we don't engage with communities, and those particular communities that we want to join us, they just won't apply. That's the reality of it. They will not apply to join the police. And so everything for me starts with effective and meaningful engagement with communities. And once we've got that right, when people do join, they need to know, retention is the thing, as you say. And it's for officers to know that the organisation has got their back, that they will be honest with them about their performance and about how they're developing, but they will give equal opportunity to everybody who wants that opportunity to develop. I think mentoring and coaching is incredibly important. So I've been involved in mentoring for many, many years, probably about 20 years now. And I think that opportunity to bounce ideas off somebody else, to seek support, to seek an understanding of the politics of the organisation, and have someone just to talk to when it's great and when it's not so great is really, really important.
Do you think when people, because behind the badge I think is a fabulous idea, and do you think people are honest? Because I'll be honest, I'm not really from a corporate background, so I don't have to toe the corporate line, and if I'm being honest with you, sometimes a bit sceptical when I see interviews, because I'm thinking, could you really tell us how it is? So do you think in that, what you've set up, which seems like it's going really well, are people really honest?
I think they are. So I have personally been to some of those inputs on Behind the Badge, and what we've recently done actually is we've moved on. We still utilise social media, but we've started doing some face-to-face inputs as well. Most recent one was in Woolwich, took over Woolwich Job Centre, brought people in, had our outreach team there who do the recruitment piece, and we had a Behind the Badge session, and I can tell you that was some raw stuff that was talked. Honestly, so honest. And I think members of the public know when they're being had over.
I think so too.
So there's absolutely no point in having something like Behind the Badge if you're just going to say all the flowery stuff and that it's all great, because that's not the reality of life. And members of the public can pick up when you are genuine and when you are not. And the instruction has always been to those who are on Behind the Badge that they're just open and honest, and they've answered questions from members of the public about racism and about stop and search and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
really
I can imagine you did it all.
Exactly. Yeah, and people will pick up on that, and I think that that's one of the the benefits and what's made it so popular is that people are just saying it how it is. So
before we conclude, so you're on your present playlist at the moment. So tell me something fun. We're so serious. Oh God! So tell me what's the last track you listened to? What's on your playlist?
The last track I listened to probably be something by Funkadelic.
Oh really? Check me out. And then what's your favourite, what we call them treats, but the things that we're not supposed to have.
But what's your got to be chocolate fudge cake cream.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I don't like chocolate. I really don't like chocolate. Really don't. I just don't know what everybody's big deal is about chocolate.
Oh no, I love chocolate. Yeah.
Favourite colour?
Pink.
And so is mine. And what's your favourite, I call them holidays? Is it Christmas? Is it...
No, my favourite is, I like anniversaries. Yes. Make a big fuss about anniversaries, and I like to see the year in.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
I'm usually working Christmas.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so doesn't that change, like 1 year off,
No, not really, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I prefer to see the new year in.
Okay. And, I probably think you're going to say, so do you have any pets?
Used to have 2 dogs.
I see your dog.
Yeah, I am. I'm a dog person. Dogs and horses.
Dogs and horses. And do you have a horse?
No, I don't know. I think that would finish me off with all the hours I work. No, I can't be doing with mucking out.
So I need to speak to your husband saying, when you get near to that time when you think of doing something else, you need to just have a word with him and stuff like that. But it's been a really pleasure speaking to you. And you know what, to be honest, it's when I came before coming, I was like, is it going to be the same old, because I've often interviewed people before, and it's just that transparency's not there, and it's that honesty, and and I love that you just shared, there's good and there's bad, it's not all a bed of roses, because I always think it's about retention for me. It's like, definitely. You might get let's say you might get me, but what's my journey going to be like when I'm here? Am I going to be protected? My mental health, my everything, And
I do think that people need to know that there is an understanding of lived experience. You may not be black, but if your manager isn't black, then at least they understand that you may well have lived experience that's very different to them, and to value that and to listen. I think most people want to be listened to and know that there is someone who will understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I also think, for any corporate, not just the Met, anywhere, that there's 2 things for me which when people talk about diversity, I think that's great, but I'm all about diversity of thought.
Yes, absolutely.
To me that's the biggest thing, it's diversity of thought.
Yeah.
And it's also about cultural competency, because I'm a black woman, but my sister who's from Kenya might have very different experiences to me, like my sister who's from India. And that's why I think cultural competency is really important, and this homogenous group I really have issues with,
No, you're right.
Like even like the word BAME, we won't go into that, that's for another day. I'm just like, but we're just not this one group. No. We have very different lived experiences, and that's all you want to be recognised, that my experience is not everybody, a black female's experience necessarily. So, but I mean, and congratulations for doing 22 years and going up the rank. I'm always like and I can't believe I was like, wow, she's done good.
But with support.
But that's the thing. You talked about mentors. And there's mentors, and obviously there's people who really support you in your journey, and then you have sponsors, which are very different. And sometimes you need that sponsor that really is going to speak for you.
And I must shout out for my husband as well.
That's probably the biggest.
I mean, he's been absolutely amazing.
I bet you never thought that you'd be there this long. And it's funny you say that, because I always wonder, with police officers, their partners actually live that journey with
Yes,
them, don't they?
They do.
And so that they are such a crucial part. So you be able to come home talking about staff and shift work. I don't know if do you know what? Everybody out there listening, don't know about this, please. I'd have to definitely media, because that shift work don't sound for me.
Yeah. I used to quite like shift work.
Did you?
I used to be off when a lot of other people were working. A little bit of time to yourself, being able to do the shopping when it's not after some silly time when everyone else is trying to do their shopping. There are advantages and disadvantages. And I come back to the speaking to officers on the ride along. You can ask them, what's the reality of working shift work?
Yeah.
You can talk to them about things that might concern you about joining the police. And I can guarantee they'll be really honest with you, because why wouldn't they be? They will just tell you how it is.
I was here last week for a meeting, and I spoke to a black female officer, and I asked her about the reaction from the community, which I think could be it's a huge one.
Yeah.
And she was quite open and honest, said that her parents never wanted her to join, and actually it caused a huge problem in her family. They didn't speak to her for a while. I mean, they speak to her now because she's, I think time has told them that, it's not as bad as whatever they thought it was. And like you said, they now have a better understanding of what actually goes on. But that was a big thing in her family. And I think community is very important to me. And to have that kind of judgment, I think, is a tough one.
Oh, it's hard, Which is why you need that support within the organisation. Because if that's what you're going through when you leave work, when you are here, you need people to understand that lived experience, so that they can support you in the best way possible. Really important.
So I hope you're getting your numbers, because I know that you guys have all got quotas in regards to getting more diverse workforce.
Yes, we've got our aspirations around that.
So let's hope with Behind the Badge and initiatives like that, which I think is probably definitely the right way to go, that you guys will smash those numbers.
Yeah, we're hoping.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And postcards, please.
Yes, of course.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.